Well, good morning. My name is Josh Devine. I'm proud to serve as Communications Director here at the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. Thank you for joining us today as we share with you some additional details about our ongoing investigation in Sumner County. You'll be hearing from 4 different speakers. First will be TBI Director David Rausch, then Jennifer Hall, who is the supervisor in the Nashville Crime Laboratory. You'll also be hearing from District Attorney General Ray Whitley for the 18th Judicial District, which covers Sumner County, as well as Sumner County Sheriff Sonny Weatherford. After each of these individuals have a chance to speak, we'll open it up for your questions and try to take as many of those as we can. First, Director Rausch.
Thank you, Josh. And thanks to each of you for being here. I want to start out first and foremost to express our condolences to the families, friends, relatives, acquaintances of the deceased from this horrible incident that happened. It's a challenge. As we continue the investigation, these victims, I think we should absolutely keep them in our thoughts, our prayers as we continue the effort to bring justice and to determine what actually occurred at the scenes that we're working. I want to thank our partners, the excellent partnership between the local, state authorities that were on scene and that have worked this incident. It's just amazing, seamless, amazing teamwork, and we're just proud to have been part of that, being able to support the effort that has taken place. We do want to identify these victims and these homicides. 6 individuals were found deceased at a home at 1177 Charles Brown Road, and they've been identified as the following: David Carl Cummins, date of birth of 10/31/67, who is the father of the suspect. Clara Jane Cummins, date of birth 12/6/74, the mother of the suspect. Charles Edward Hosell, 9/22/73, is the uncle. Rachel Dawn McLaughlin P., date of birth 11/11/75. We're still working to determine and clarify her relationship specifically to Mr. Cummins at this time. Rachel McLaughlin P., 5/19/06, Rachel's daughter. Marcia Elizabeth Knuckles, 4/19/55, and she is Rachel's mother. The victim found deceased in her home at 1555 Luby Brown Road has been identified as Shirley B. Farrell. Her date of birth is 12/22/49, and she has no known relationships to the suspect. An 8th victim, also a relative of the suspect, remains in critical condition, and our prayers go out to her for her recovery. TBI continues to investigate this horrific case, and we'd urge anyone with information that may be of interest to the agents during this investigation to contact the TBI at 1-800-TBI-FIND. We also, I want you to understand, we're going to call Jennifer up to talk about the complexity of this scene. I want to help you understand that it is not only complex but horrific. Gruesome, I guess, would probably be the best adjective to use to describe it. We understand when we have these types of scenes the impact that it has on first responders. And so as a result of that, we will be working to bring in the specialists that will be able to help our teams work their way through this for psychological reasons. Very difficult for those who were engaged in the investigative process. And so, again, kudos to the teams, but we realize that humans that have to experience this kind of scene, the impact that it could have long-lasting, we want to make sure that they have the resources to be able to address it handle it, understand what they have witnessed, and to be able to appropriately, psychologically process it and move forward. And so that is too a piece that we'll be working on. But I can't speak highly enough of the great work of the teams that we had on scene. The apprehension of the suspect was critical for the safety of Sumner County and all others. And we are very proud of the aviation assets that were utilized by both the TBI and the Tennessee Highway Patrol on this incident. Our airplane that we have been criticized for, quite frankly, proved its value this weekend, was the critical piece in identifying where the suspect was and bringing law enforcement to the suspect to protect the public and to protect those officers. And so I think it's critical that people understand that those assets that we have are vital, and the utilization of them is critical, especially during horrific incidents like what we've experienced this past weekend. So kudos to that team that was involved in that, and the work that they did, and the work of the team on the ground to get this accomplished, the multi-jurisdictional task force, the team, the SWAT team that the sheriff will talk about, their effort to take the individual into custody. Clearly, an amazing team effort, and we're very proud that we were able to be support for that effort and able to utilize our resources that have been so well provided by the state of Tennessee to get that accomplished. And so thank you.
Thank you so much. Before Jennifer speaks, I do want to let you know, of course, you may have some specific questions about the scene. We will certainly not be able to address any of that at this point, but we did feel it was helpful to sort of give you a broader sense of what the context of this particular scene looked like and what we're doing to support our scientists right now.
Good morning. As you all know, TBI was founded as an agency to help smaller, more rural agencies work complex crime scenes. So anytime that we are sent out, it is always very difficult. However, with each victim that we add to that, the complexity grows. We have to have a perspective that is fresh and scientific for each victim that is represented. And it is our due diligence to approach them all separately and individually. For this reason, when you have 6 victims in one home, it takes a very long time to process that scene. There's a lot of fragile evidence that's also in play here. We always talk about DNA and latents as being the most common pieces of information. However, in the Nashville Crime Laboratory, we have a unit called microanalysis, or TRACE, as people commonly know it. It's the only laboratory in the state that processes this type of evidence. And this is extremely fragile evidence that takes a specific way to collect and preserve and document, so that when we do go to court, we can accurately portray that information to the jury. And it's a very, very difficult, and I worry about the people that go there and work these scenes, because these people on a daily basis come into the lab, and they also work evidence that's submitted to law enforcement officials across the state of Tennessee. So we kind of joke with them that this is their moonlighting job, because they're doing it in addition to normal tasks that they have here in the laboratory. So for that reason, these scientists will also come back in, and now they have to work this evidence and issue reports based on the evidence that will be submitted on this case.
My name is Ray Whitley. I'm the elected district attorney for Sumner County, the 18th Judicial District. I've been the elected district attorney since 1980. I've had a long career in prosecution. This is one of the most horrific cases that I've ever had to encounter and deal with, as we all know. The only good thing that I think that has come out of this case is the cooperation that all the agencies have exhibited working together to find the perpetrator of these crimes, and all the good work that they did to have him arrested and taken into custody as quickly as he did, as was done. There are going to be a lot of decisions that will have to be made as we go down the way with this case. Those decisions will impact how the case will be handled. The facts, of course, have to be taken into consideration. The law has to be taken into consideration. But everything is going the way it should at this point. There's an awful lot of scientific evidence, as you've just heard, that has to be brought forward, and we will make the decisions that need to be made as we go along. Now, this is a case, since it involves so many victims, so many different aspects of it, it will take some time to determine exactly how we're going to handle it. But we are equipped to do that, and with all the cooperation, with all the information we have, we will see that justice is done, and we will see that the victims and their families will see that justice is done. And it's great that it's shown that the community is upset, that everybody is upset over what has happened here, but we're doing business according to the way it should be done. And we're not going to overreact, but we're going to do what the law requires, and we're prepared to do that.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Sheriff Sonny Weatherford, the Sheriff of Sumner County. I'm just going to briefly say a few things. This is one of the worst things that I've ever been involved with in Sumner County. I've never seen anything that would even come close to this. With that being said, I would like to next say that we need to have prayers for the family and for anyone involved around that family. The community, we need to have prayers for the community. It's a small community, and this has just been terrible for anyone that knew these people or even lives in that area. It's still an open investigation, of course, and any information that you may have, please feel free to call us, call the Sheriff's Office, call the TBI, and let's try to find out everything that we can find about this incident that took place. And then I'd like to also say thank you to all the agencies that were involved with this. This was a big operation that happened very quickly. I don't want to name all of them right here. I'll probably forget someone, but there was local, state, even federal people that were involved, agencies involved with this. And like I said, we were all able to come together quickly, and were able to use the technology to find this suspect in a small amount of time and get him into custody. And that's all I have. I'll take any questions afterwards.
Thank you so much to our speakers. At this point, we'll open things up for questions, if anyone has any.
I have a question. What murder weapons were used, and were the bodies dismembered?
Yeah, unfortunately, we're unable to answer that question at this time. That the investigation is still active and ongoing, as you know, and so unfortunately, those facts we can't release just yet. But as soon as we're able, we'll get that out to you.
Why did it take so long to identify that there were two bodies the next day found there? Was that just because of the state that they were in?
Yeah, the challenge, I think, that we mentioned the complexity of this scene and the need to take our time as we processed, and so that's the reason that it took longer to find the other the decedents.
Whenever we work a crime scene, we always approach it from the entry to the interior. So it was simply processing all of that evidence prior to getting back to that area. Unfortunately, we can't just go in and take care of the victims first. We have to consider the scene and the integrity of the evidence and work it in a systematic, methodical manner. So unfortunately, it just took us that long to get back to that area.
What about, do we have a better sense of when the murders actually occurred? Like, we know a family member or somebody discovered them, but do you think that they had been there a few days, or?
Yeah, so again, part of the ongoing investigation, we do, I can tell you, we believe that it's probably more than one day, and that is part of the ongoing investigation.
More than one day before they were discovered?
More than one day of the totality of the incidents is probably the best way to describe it.
Question. We're hearing that Cummins is possibly responsible or linked to a murder 2 weeks ago of a homeless man. Is that something you can talk about?
Those all are still open, active investigations at this time.
What about criminal history in general? Does he have one? Is it lengthy?
Yes, and I'm sure that information will be forthcoming if you haven't already found it. Most of it, I think, has already been reported on, but that information will be forthcoming.
What about a history of mental health issues?
That I don't have the information on at this time.
We're also hearing that there's possible searches going on for more bodies in the area near those homes. Can you confirm that?
Yeah, that I am not aware of. I know that our efforts and the efforts of law enforcement obviously have been focused on the scenes that we are aware of at this point.
What about, do you know any more about why all 6 of these people were in this home? Like, I think originally we thought that their parents were living with friends, and now I see it's like an uncle. But do you know the dynamic there?
That's all still part of the ongoing investigation, trying to determine that.
Is the injured person recovering in the hospital his grandmother? And if so, what is her condition and which hospital is she at?
Yeah, so I won't provide that detail of information. I can tell you that it is a family member and that member is in critical condition. And so, but that's as far as we're going to release on that information at this point.
We had heard that maybe he had stolen a car and then taken off in that car, crashed, and then you all later found him in the woods. Is that how that went down?
Again, that's all part of this ongoing investigation. I'd love to be able to give more detail, but it is very active, and so so that we don't compromise the case, I think we've got to be careful about what we discuss at this point.
Is there anything that you can explain or tell us about the deputy who fired on the suspect?
That again is a separate investigation. There are a number of investigations taking place right now, but that is a separate investigation that is currently underway.
Do you have any details on the relationship you have with his family, or any orders of protection against them, or anything like that?
Not that we can release again at this point. All of those, again, all of this is real active in terms of the investigative process. So unfortunately, I know there's a lot of questions, and unfortunately at this point, there's still a lot of questions we have, and we're working to get those answers. And as soon as we're able, we'll share what we can of that information. But I think you all understand the complexity, what we're dealing with. And so all of those questions you have, we have as well. And those are all part of that investigative process.
Can you talk about when he got out of jail most recently? Because that looks like a very recent mugshot. I know he's been charged recently too with arson and some other things.
I can't give any detail on that. I would have to leave that to others that may have more detail to provide. But I'm not sure. Sure.
The general may have.
About when he was most recently released.
I can answer that question. He was released about the middle of January of this year, of 2019.
Was that on the aggravated arson charge?
Well, I'm not supposed to talk ethically about prior convictions. I wish I could, but nevertheless, he was in custody and he was released on the 19th of January.
Is Cummins cooperating and has he been charged?
Who?
Is the suspect cooperating with authorities?
So obviously, as you know, the suspect was injured in the shooting incident, and so at this point now, as I understand, there has been a charge brought forward. I think at this point, Josh, do you know
Sure.
details?
At this point, he remains hospitalized. He has not been formally charged. All of that is still very much in process. You could expect, however, when he is in the condition where he can be released from medical care, that he will certainly remain in the custody of law enforcement.
But along those lines, can you speak to his demeanor at all when you all found him in the woods, or since he's been in the hospital, things he said?
I can't speak to that at all. Obviously, that's all part of the investigative process.
Can you
Is there
put this in
anything more that
perspective?
you can, I'm sorry.
Can you put this in perspective? You said you can't give too many initial details about the crime scene, but how, put this in perspective for people.
Well, I think to put it in perspective is it's unprecedented in terms of, I mean, you know, we're talking about a mass killing, right? And so thank goodness we don't see this too often. And so it requires additional and extreme effort to address it. So I think that's why there's more questions than answers at this point. And we ask the patience. I think the key and critical point that we make is that, you know, we've got these victims, and you know, and there's family members and loved ones and friends. You know, with the youngest victim, you know, I can't imagine how that will impact those in the school that she went to. So, you know, there's this community, Sumner County community, that a very small, close-knit community that will deal with these tragedies, and so. The complexity of it, I think, explains why there's more questions than answers. And, you know, that we certainly are going to take our time to make sure that everything we do, that nothing we do compromises going forward. Because we do have a perpetrator that we believe is responsible. And we want to make sure that everything we do from this point forward cannot be challenged. And so that's why we're very protective about answers. We got to make sure that everything is solid in the cases that we will build going forward. And so I hope that describes for you the challenge that we're under. Yes, ma'am, you had it.
Yeah. Is there anything more that you can share about what exactly prompted you to go out to that first house location?
Well, for TBI's purpose, we were contacted by the Sheriff's Department. And I would have to leave it to the sheriff to tell you how he got the first call.
We received a call from one of the family members that had went in and saw the scene and then called 911 and asked for our presence to be there. That's how we were notified. One other thing I'd like to say while I'm up here is, I failed to do so earlier, is we have contacted the director of the schools, and they're going to make sure that counselors are there for the next few days to help with the students and the teachers of this young lady.
Speaking of that, you talked about just how difficult this has been on some of the officers, and I'm just wondering, you know, either with the sheriff's office or with the TBI, you know, are there any investigators that are so distraught that they're off the job tonight or anything like that?
No, that has not happened at this point. And so, you know, in my experience, and in dealing with these types of situations, right, it's not. What happens is law enforcement and first responders go in focused to do their job and to do what they have to do at the scene as they address these problems. It's not until day 4, day 5 that those things start to creep into your mind and you start to question what you were dealing with. And so that's the reason we have to worry about that fallout that potentially can happen. But to answer your question specifically, no, there were no one, law enforcement or from our scientists, no one has had to be relieved or removed from the investigative process.
2 more questions.
How's the family doing at this point?
You know, I think that you would expect that they are absolutely horrified. And so, you know, the support is being provided as well to those survivors. Yes, sir.
One of the worst murders in the state of Tennessee, you know, you may not know.
You know, coming from an agency where we worked some pretty horrific scenes, I don't know that I could qualify it there. I can tell you it is certainly one of the most difficult and horrific ones in recent times, and certainly at a level that's unprecedented.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
All right, our speakers will exit. Thank you so much for your time. As a reminder, we are still awaiting autopsy results, which will certainly provide additional information that will help us understand a lot about the causes and what exactly transpired with these deaths. Any other follow-up questions that I can help with right
The
now?
911 call?
In terms of?
Can we have a copy of it?
I don't know that we have it in our possession. Let me check on that and see what the deal is with that. If we do have it, Carly, I'll be honest, we're not going to be able to release that because that would be considered evidence in our confidential case file.
What about updates throughout the afternoon? Because we'll probably probably all go out to the city.
Sure.
So
I wouldn't expect that beyond what we've provided, that there will be any additional information from our agency today to provide, unless he does wind up being released from the hospital, at which point we'll be happy to notify you that that's occurred and also provide any sort of follow-up information about charges, bookings that may have resulted. Yes?
Josh, as far as the Louis Brown Road incident goes, can we call that like a home invasion carjacking, or how do we kind of like describe that?
Sure. I think at this point, until we have a better sense of exactly what transpired there, we are just calling that another homicide in connection to this overall incident. We certainly don't want to get out ahead of the facts that our agents are able to glean. We realize that the public wants a lot of information about this. The reality is we do too. It takes an enormous amount of time to process what we're processing right now.
And no motive has been discussed?
No, not at this point. All right. Don't forget, anytime you want the written updates, it'll be available on tbinewsroom.com. For your newsrooms, I'll put this information about the identity, so don't feel like you need to slam out an email to your newsroom. I'll take care of that for you. As always, you can send inquiries to our office at tbi.media@tn.gov. We really want to thank you guys so much for helping us to get the information about Cummins out to the public on Saturday into Sunday. That was really, really valuable, and we certainly appreciate you helping us to make sure the public stayed vigilant. So thank you guys, and we'll be in touch. Take care.